Welcome to the Foundations of Figma, our most in-depth Figma course for beginners. Today we will learn the basics of variables inside Figma. This is a new feature and many students get confused with it. Today I will simplify variables and also show you practical examples. My name is Ansh Mehra and I teach students design and AI. This is lecture 5 of our 10 lecture series. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. Alright, so let's get started. Before moving forward, I just want to make sure that we are very clear about the fact that this entire course is not a UX design course. This is a Figma course. There's a big difference. So this is where I teach you what exactly is Figma and how do you use different features of Figma. Even if you know Figma end to end, you will not get a job. So you first need to learn the tool, which is Figma, and then spend time learning UX design, which is the subject. You will get hired if you understand UX design. But of course, you can't start learning UX unless you know Figma, and that is what this course is for. You are watching lecture number 5. But before lecture number 5, I have already uploaded 4 lectures on the YouTube channel. All are for free. In lecture number 1, we did the basics of Figma. In lecture number 2, we did frames and auto layout. In lecture 3, I discussed styles and libraries, which is a very important video. And in lecture 4, we discussed how to make components and variants. Now, if you haven't seen even a single lecture, I would recommend you to please start from lecture number 1 once you finish lecture number 5. If you've missed any video so far, please make sure you watch them because this is a very well planned series. So when I'm making this video, I am assuming that you've completed all of your syllabus so far. Now, if you already know Figma and if you're interested in learning UX design in specific as a subject, then I have launched a free course on learnuiux.in. It is a complete roadmap to a UX design career where I'm very honest and absolutely clear about the expectations. How do you apply for job, average salaries, how do you apply for internships, jobs, every single thing. This is a total 9-week syllabus, but if you do the additional modules as well, then it would take you almost 9 weeks. But trust me when I say this, if you follow this roadmap on learnuiux.in, you will have nothing left. You will know absolutely enough to apply for your first well-paying UX design internship. Now that I've set the context, let's move forward. Today's syllabus is split into 3 modules. In module number 1, I will explain you what exactly are variables and why do we even need them. If we already had color styles, then why did we need variables in the first place? Second, I will make you understand the different types of variables because a lot of students think that variables is just a modern version of style. Styles were absolutely logged for, say, typography and colors and shadows, but variables are more than that. There are more types of properties that you can store inside variables. So I will take you through all the different types one by one and their use cases as well as to which type is used for which purpose. And in the last module, we will go through some practical examples and also try variables in a simple prototyping examples. Now, throughout this video, I will be zooming in if there's anything important to show. If I press any specific key, you will see them on the top right corner. So at any point, if you feel confused as to what did Ansh press, you have all the clarity. Building your own ChatGPT bots, understanding AI automation, and learning the most valuable tips and tricks in the world of AI. These are just few of the topics from our agenda for our AI meetups in Delhi on 2nd December and Hyderabad on 3rd December. You will not only network with me, but also meet Mr. Ajay Yadav, who's the co-founder of Simplified. Here is what our attendees had to say from last time.
The meetup was pretty amazing.
I came from Mumbai to visit this.
Workshop was very crisp and to the point. There was a lot of learning that I can take away.
It was very informative. I was one of the people who hated using AI, but now I think I'm going to be the convertible one. Big thumbs up. It was great for me.
Trust me, this time the event is 2 times bigger because we will have live masterclasses, networking, high tea, and a lot of live Q&A between the audiences, me, and Ajay Yadav, who has literally built a supremely successful AI startup. Both Ajay and I have been collecting resources, roadmaps, and proper techniques that we want to share you in our meetup in both Delhi and Hyderabad. If you've been following AI news, you know what all has changed in the last 1 month. With the App Store coming in, the revenue sharing model, everything will change in the next 2 to 3 months. And if you want leverage, then you need to be prepared for it. There are limited seats, the links are in the description. I will see you in Delhi on 2nd December and in Hyderabad on 3rd December. Let's start with module number 1 as to what exactly are variables. Now, before I get into the discussion of variables, I need to quickly revise what we had discussed in lecture number 3, which was around declaring styles. When we were learning about styles, we touched this topic of design tokens. Now, if you don't know what are design tokens, let me quickly explain it to you. In a UI system, and when I say UI system, I basically mean a system of colors that are used to design a screen. There are a limited set of colors and the designer has to choose from those colors. Let's just say that in my UI design system, I have a blue color. Now the root value, which is just a fancy word for the hex code value, is 7F56D9. Straightforward. But as a designer, I can't communicate saying, can you please use 7F56D9? So I basically need to give it a name. Let's just assume that this hex code is now given a global name and we will call this as blue 100. Makes sense. Now this blue 100 can be used in my UI, it can be used in my marketing, it can be used somewhere else as well. So the same color can be referenced into something else as well. So this global name, which is blue 100, can now have another layer on top of it, another reference on top of it, specifically for say the UI system. And let's just say that in my UI system, I use the blue color as a brand color. Assume that, maybe you're designing a social media website and you have decided to use this one specific color as the primary color. So I will probably name this as UI primary 1. Now, even within the UI primary 1, I can recycle this primary 1 color for different use cases. For example, on the left side, we have a pop-up. And this pop-up is from a free Figma community file called untitled UI file. So you can obviously, go and practice the same. This UI primary 1 is now being used for a check icon, but it is also being used for this modal text. Now what's happening is that you had one single color. You first named this as blue 100. Then you're referencing the same thing as UI primary 1. Then this thing is also being referenced into 2 different ways. And there's a proper principle behind this. We covered this in detail in lecture number 3 in the styles and libraries episode. So I'm just revising just in case you've forgotten. This entire process of referencing colors comes under the subject of design tokens. And you see these names right here. These are called token names. Now, why would I need this? Because if I have to change, say, just the check icon, I can take this branch and then connect it to some other color, maybe a gray color. But let's just say that if I ever decide to change blue 100, this change will reflect everywhere else. So of course, this is a very good way to have systems. Now the question is, how do you achieve this feature inside Figma where I have a hex code and there's a name for it? This level 1 of referencing was possible using styles. Now how did we make styles? I would go here, click on this 4 icon, click on this plus icon, and then by default, it asks me to declare a variable. When variables were not there, it would ask me to convert this into a style. So I can literally put a name to this color. I can say blue 100. Okay. I can also add a description and I can create a style. But now if I need to have another style, say UI primary 1, I can't link it to blue 100. I would have to again go here and again sort of detach this. Again go here, click on plus, go to style and make this as UI primary 1. Now what exactly is happening? UI primary 1 in my styles is a completely different entity from blue 100. Which means that if I had to change this blue color, I will have to make the change 2 times. I will have to go to primary 1 as well. And then I will have to individually change blue 100 as well. which is really annoying. This is not what I wanted. I don't want like this one single referencing. I want this multi-level referencing. Now, this is one of the features of variables. People think that this is what variables are for saving colors on multiple levels. That is not true. Variables has a ton of benefits. Being able to have one color being referenced in multiple layers is just one of the features. So let me go back here and delete this color, and let me delete this style as well. So as I said, why do we need variables? Number one is, of course, I can have multi-level connections, which basically means I can have one single color value and a bunch of other things and I can reference them. Another benefit is that when we were talking about, say, color styles or type styles or shadow styles, there were limitations, right? Here, I can actually store things like strings and numbers and quantities. So you can store values that are just beyond your basic types and shadows and colors, because there are so many other things that you need to save and keep consistent in a design system. I know that most of you are beginners, but a lot of you would have tried making UI in different themes. When that happens, when we only had styles, we had to declare a different palette for a light theme, different palette for a dark theme, and it was just like so difficult to sort of switch between light and dark theme. Here you can switch between those themes very, very easily. In fact, you can switch between multiple themes. In fact, using variables, you can switch between different devices as well. So the responsive design aspect of things also becomes very, very easy, where you have one single component. And if I were to take that component and drag it into different frames, it would automatically change from its web version to, a mobile version to a tablet version. We're not going to cover this today because, of course, we have like limited time and I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm just making you understand as to what all are the possibilities if you understand variables. If you use the text or the string based variables, you can actually have your UI being converted into different languages as well. So you will have one single button, and that one single button can be in Hindi, English and French, but all three buttons would be connected to a single instance. Now you would be wondering that, Ansh, you've given so much of theory. Tell us what exactly are variables and how do they work? Let me first make you understand that variables are not just about colors. There are 4 types of variables. One is, of course, the color, but the second is number, where you can actually store number values. Just to give you a quick example, let's say that I am following an 8 pixel grid or like an 8 pixel rule, where all of my pop-ups or my corner radii are going to be in the multiples of 8. Now, if I have a table of 8, which is, 8, 16, 24, 32, that way, I have a limited set of numbers. No person should be able to use the number 9, correct? This 8 number, it can be used for a border radii. It can be used for any other shape and size. It can be used for a pill height as well. So the number 8 itself as an integer can be referenced for multiple use cases. That is why variables also allow you to save numbers. You can also save strings, which basically means that you can save titles, names, phrases and words, like single words or maybe, even 2-3 words together. But I would not recommend you to use this for paragraphs. But yes, sometimes you have headings that you want to be uniform across all pop-ups. Let's just say you have 50 pop-ups, and all of those 50 pop-ups, the color is changing, the height is changing, but the headline says attention. Now, if somebody comes to you and says that, Ansh, moving forward, we will not have our pop-ups say attention. Now our pop-ups will say caution. So you'll have to individually go and change all of those copies. Or, there were some plugins where you could do like Control F across Figma and change that. But in variables, you can actually store that headline as well, which means you're actually creating a component of all the text as well. Variables are nothing but basically components for things that were not even possible before. So you are componentizing number values, you're componentizing headings. And I know that I'm just verbally explaining this right now. In module 2, I will show you how these work, but I'm just sort of setting context. See, I know that this video is going to be long. I will have to recommend you the fact that you'd have to watch this video at least 2 times, because the entire concept is very, very fresh. I have been in this field for so long and it took me at least a week to understand how variables work. So give this time, give yourself, patience and understand how this works, and trust me, you will get it. The last variable type is a boolean, where you can just have a 0 or 1 value, or a true or false value, not on and off, but they just use the word true and false. So this is one very important thing, that sometimes you want to hide something, or you want to keep something, it is either there or not there. So I'll show you how boolean works, but basically these are the 4 variable types. Now you can reuse these values again and again, and just like styles and components, when you create these variables, they become a part of your library. So if I have a design system library where I'm declaring all of them, once I publish that library, all other files that have that library enabled will have access to these variables. Now folks, before I move forward, I want to give you a very strong reminder that we will not upload the next lecture until unless we get 1000 likes on this video within 5 days of upload, and at least 500 comments within 5 days of upload, because I'd put in a gap after lecture 4. I was feeling like you people are not even watching, or you're not like engaging with the video. But if you're enjoying this series, I want your feedback. I want your proper good feedback in the comment section. So once you finish your video, make sure you contribute to the 1000 likes and the 500 comments. Otherwise, I will not upload the next lecture. I'm not kidding. I love the subject, but I want to make sure that you guys are supporting us, because we work so hard to make these videos come to life. With that being said, let me come to module number 2, where we understand the types of variables that exist. Now the simplest type is the color variable. Now instead of talking about it, let me show you how the UI looks like. To get my variables option, I have to click outside the frame into this UI area, which is my blank space. As soon as you do that, on the right side, you will have the page settings where you can change the background, but you will also see this option called local variables. If you click on this icon right here, you will have this menu open up. Now you can take this menu and also resize it just like this. So I can take the corners and resize it in the way I want. Right now, this feature is in beta mode as of 18th November 2023. So there might be some bugs, but overall 70 to 80% this works pretty well. Now let me break down this entire UI for you. Here you're seeing all variables, but on the very top, you also see this word called collection 1. Now, you remember when we were talking about styles, I said that in a design system, you can have a set of 10 colors that are only your primary colors. You can have a set of colors that are only your gray colors. You can have a set of colors that are only your semantic colors. Then you can have another set of colors just for the text. So when I say this set of colors, okay, imagine that this set is now being called as a collection. And now instead of styles, I will call this as a variable. So now we are slowly evolving from having a group of colors to having a collection of variables. So that is the lingo, that is the vocabulary that I will use moving forward. Now, if I click on this 3 dots right here, I can rename this collection. So let me call this as primitives. Okay, this is where I will declare all of my base colors, that color palette that we had declared in our styles, that 0 to 1 thing where we started from white and we went to black. Let me declare those. Okay, now let's assume that instead of doing things here, if I had styles with me, I would probably do it this way, right? Let's create 5 boxes. This one can be F, this one can be gray, this one can be a darker gray, and then this one can be even more darker, and this one can be black. Okay. Now I will take all of these, and when we had styles, what did we used to do? We used to do command / we used to sort them using the sorter plugin, and then we used to batch rename this and maybe make this as gray $1. Okay. Now in reality, I would make this as, base 1, mid and contrast, but I'm just just to simplify things, let's just name this as gray 1 to gray 5. And then I would declare them as styles. But now I can go to my variables, create a variable, and as soon as I click on the create variable button, I get 4 options. Right now we're starting color variable, so I will select color. As soon as I do that, I get 2 columns here. One is the name of this variable and the value stored inside this variable. So let me call this as gray 1. And here I can go select my eyedropper and choose this color right here. Now this was F, so this is pretty straightforward. But I can now click on create variable again, and then click on color. This time call it as gray 2. Go here and choose this one. Okay. Again go. Let's take this as gray 3. Go here. Choose this one. Go here. Make this gray 4. Choose this one. Select gray 5. And choose this one. Alright. So now I have all of my grays sorted. Now let's assume that these grays are used for 3 purposes. Number 1 purpose, I am using this for my surfaces. Number 2 purpose, I am using this for my text. Could be a heading, subheading, and maybe bullet points. And the third purpose could be for illustrations. Okay, because they are pretty simple, straightforward colors. This is where the fun part begins. Now, if I am in my primitives library, I can of course create a new library which is not about my primitives, but now this is for my surfaces. I can go here, click on this create collection button, and this time I will call this as UI palette. Okay. And I can switch between my UI palette and primitives. Now, if I go to my UI palette, I can literally create a variable. And this time, let's just say that in my design system, the way I name my colors is surface 1, surface 2, surface 3. I can go here and type surface 1. This is where the game changes. Let's say that I want my surface 1 to be of this color. Now, if I were to connect this with this color and not to my primitives, I'm basically doing the same mistake that I used to do in styles, that my surface 1 and my gray 2 are separate entities. But now if I go to my value and right click, I have an option that says create alias. If I click on create alias, a pop-up opens up where it either says that you can select a custom color, which I don't want that. I can click on libraries and here I can find my primitives collection. And in my primitives collection, I can select gray 2. Now, do you know what is happening right here? The fun part is that I just created branching. So you remember that thing where I said that this can be one color, it can be branched in another way, and it can again be branched in another way. So you had the root value right here, which was then, let me bring out the pencil. This color was first branched as gray 2. And now this same gray 2 is again linked to my surface 1. Now I can do this again and again. And the fun part is that if I change this color right here, my changes would be reflected everywhere else. So you remember this thing right here? This was not possible with styles, but now it is with my color variables. Now the interesting part here is that to make variables really useful, you need to understand collections as well. And I think that is pretty straightforward. What I can do is in my UI palette, I can also create another variable, and this time I will call it as text primary. Now in my text primary, I don't want this to be white. I basically want this to be black. Why? Because assume that I'm creating a light themed app. So if I'm creating a light theme app, if the surface is so light, the text has to be dark. I will right click again, create my alias, and this time I will select gray 5. Now this is very cool because now all of my colors are linked to one core library. So everything is very neatly arranged. Now the fun part is that let's say, let me delete all of this. If I create a frame and let's say I create a pop-up that looks like this, I can go here. Instead of having a normal hex code, I can click on my 4 dots and I can find all of my primitives right here. When I say primitives, it's basically all the variables. Now I can either choose gray 1 or gray 2, or I can actually go to my UI palette collection and select surface 1. This is the right way to use your colors. If I were to choose gray 2, then I would have committed the same mistake. But now I can select surface 1. Now the fun part here is that if I come back to my primitives, if I were to any day change my gray 2, it would reflect everywhere else. So you can imagine how cool this is. Now if I were to go and select a text layer that says hello, I can increase the size and again go to my 4 dots and this time select text primary. So it's just 100 times better way to sort of organize your things neatly. Now the interesting part here is that let's assume I have created these grays, then I went to my UI palette and I have my gray 2 linked to my surface 1, correct? Surface 1 is available in this entire list. So if I were to go here in my text, if I click on this option, in my UI palette collection, I can still see Surface 1. Logically, not even logically, even if I were to follow the system that I have created, I don't want this recommendation of Surface 1 for my text, because I want only text colors to be accessible when I am rechanging or recoloring my text. This is where the concept of scoping comes in. Let me show you how this works. So I will come back to my UI palette collection, and if I go to my Surface 1, in my value I have gray 2, but right next to my value I have this thing called as edit variable. As soon as I do that, I open a new window where I can change the name, I can add a description, change the value, but I also see this option called as color scoping. This is Figma's way of asking me that, Ansh, where exactly do you plan to use this color? And let's assume that I only plan to use this in fills. Okay. Within fill, you have an option to tell Figma whether I will use this for a frame or a shape or a text or even a stroke. Now, if I unselect text, if I unselect stroke, then I will not see this inside my options when I'm trying to add a color to my text. Similarly, if I go to my text primary, click on this icon right here. This is a color that I have chosen for text primary. So what I will do is I will uncheck fill altogether and only select text and also unselect stroke. When that happens, even if I'm selecting a surface right here, if I open my color panel, in my UI palette, I will not see text primary. This is insane. Right now, you will not be able to understand its value, but I'll tell you what happens. When we were creating styles, I used to get so many of these color lists right here. And I used to wonder that, dude, it has become so difficult to scroll through this list. It has become so difficult to search through my colors because, there were so many overlapping words. But now with the concept of scoping, this entire thing has become supremely easy to scale and maintain. Isn't this absolutely amazing? Let me know in the comments section if your mind has just been like in awe seeing how useful this would be. Now this first type of variable, which is a color variable, is pretty simple to understand, and I keep seeing a lot of people just talking about the color variable. The next type is a number variable. Now to make you understand why do we need this, I have a screen in front of me, and just assume that probably I will be having my own app where I will be uploading all of my courses in one single go, and I have this screen right here, and here you have one recommendation and then you have resume watching. Now let's assume that I have this component right here, and even though this is not a very practical example, I am just taking this example just to prove a point. Okay, I'm going to keep this right here, and let's assume that I want the beginning to say 0 views. Okay, so the start of the UI should always say 0 views. Now of course by default the copy says 24,000 blah blah blah. This is where number variables can help me. So I will go here, click outside, go to my local variables, and here in my UI palette or my primitives, I can literally have a new variable added. However, I will not do this in my primitives because this is a value that I am using on a component level. So to make things way more organized, I will create a new collection, and this time I will call it as component data. Okay. In my component data, I can create a variable, and this time I will select the number option. Here I can say default views. Okay. And notice how I'm using dash. If I use the word slash, then it would have grouping inside a collection as well. We're not covering that today, but I'm just letting you know. Now the fun part is that I can select this text layer right here, which is called 24,642 views. And on the right side where you have your type settings, you have this small diamond button right here, which is the option to apply a variable. As soon as I do that, I will have default views right here. Now the mistake that I have made right now is that if I select default views, the entire text layer has now gotten converted into the number 0. But I always wanted it to be some amount of number digits and then the word views. This is where you need to start building a habit of organizing your text in auto layouts. Now, what do I mean by that? This is a wrong way to organize your views. The correct way would be that I would detach this instance, go here, and first of all, if I take this text layer right here, in my layer, by default, the layer name is the copy that I have added into my text. The correct way to design your components is to double click and call this as video title. Then here, I should duplicate, take these two, put them into auto layout, maybe add a 4 pixels gap. This thing right here should be called the view count, and this too should be called term views. Why? Because I will hard code this to be views. Now, if I take this thing right here, click on this diamond button and then click on default views, now this number right here is attached to this, which means that if I make this 100, this would become 100 views. Okay. If I were to delete this right here and keep this is the right way to actually organize your components. Now, the fun part is that let's say I have the word resume watching. Okay. And assume that I keep this thing right here. This is, say, a phone. Okay. And I'm just like making this in a very, very rough way, but just to prove a point. But let's just say I keep resume watching like this. Then I also create a version for the desktop where I have it in my wide panel. And then I would probably make this into a different style, maybe like have like a really big heading and keep this way. Okay. So on my phone and on my web, I have used the word resume watching. And let's assume that I have multiple files like this. So maybe, the same thing is the same component maybe is being used in a central way or in a story, whatever it may be. And let me just change the background color so that it's very, very evident. So I'll just make this as, say, this color right here. Now this resume watching, it of course has a type style. The type style is declaring the font, the weight, and all of those things. But I'm saying, what if I want to componentize this phrase resume watching? What if 6 months from now, a PM comes to me and says that Ansh, instead of resume watching, we have to make this resume learning. As soon as I do that, I would have to literally go and type this as resume learning in every single place. Now, of course, I could have fixed this if both of these things were into a component or if I had component properties. But now I can actually save this thing right here and have that change reflected everywhere else. But here is the caveat. In my resume learning, the phrase is actually a string. In this case, when I was actually adding a number, this was an integer. So a string is made up of alphabets, and alphabets are called characters. So basically when I say the word views, and let me just detach this, the word views is a string. And this string is made up of 5 characters. V is a character, I is a character, and so on. Now, this is actually a number and this is a string. So if I have to componentize this phrase right here, I will have to go create a variable and choose the word string. And I can call this as resume heading. Okay. And I will call this as resume learning. Now I can go here and then apply my variable right here. So I can take this one, and I think you can't do this on multiple styles. So let me just make this one by one. And here you go. Now when that happens, I can say continue, and it would reflect everywhere else, right? Now, a lot of students ask me that, Ansh, how is this different from a component property? A component property can only be added to a component, correct? Which means if I had to use a component property, I would have to make this string right here a part of this component declaration. But in a UI, you have so many things all over. You can't make a component for everything. Imagine the amount of clutter you would have in your library. Moreover, in a component property, you have multiple strings for a single component, which basically means that if you have an input field, the input field has one label, and that one label, the placeholder is label, but the label can be first name, last name, email. So you have multiple variations of the label. So when you have multiple variations of the label, you will use a component property because it has been declared as a variant somewhere else. In this case, this is for dedicated integer values or dedicated string values that are just standalone headings. These are standalone sentences. You don't have to make them a part of some component. So when we click on create variable, I explained you color, I explained you number, I just showed you string. And just to quickly revise what we've studied, let me just bring back the slides right here and let me take this window right here. You can store numbers and then reuse those numbers for whatever case you want. For example, let's say that I have decided that all of my corner radii is going to be 5 pixels. So let's just say I have a bunch of pop-ups. One pop-up is this, then you have some notification, then you also have some small button. Okay. And I will take all of these, let's have them aligned, and I want to keep all of them as 5 pixels. Okay. And I have decided a rule that it's going to be in multiples of 5. Okay. What I can do is I can go here, create a new collection and maybe call this as either primitive numbers, or I can delete this collection and then go back to my primitives and just save here. So I can literally have 3 phrases. Okay. I will go to my number. I will call this as small. Okay. The other one can be as medium. And then I can also have large. Okay. This can be 5. And instead of making it 5, let's keep it 4 so that it's more practical. Let's keep this 8. Let's keep this as 12. Now I can take all of these things right here. Instead of manually adding the number right here, if you hover over this input field, you can now apply a variable. So I can go here and choose small, and then all of my buttons, pop-ups, everything is now linked to this quantity right here. Now the fun part is that this is not just restricted to corner radii. No, you can use this for many things. Now the question is, Ansh, how do we decide that where all can this be used? The easiest way is you check out the scoping. If I go to my scoping settings, you will see that you can use this for corner radius, width and height, gap, and text content. So the fun part here is that let's just say I have another one. Let's call this as medium height. Okay. And I will make this as 32. Okay. I can take this pop-up right here, go to my height, choose this and select medium height. That way, if I'm making a pill, I have actually componentized the height and the corner radii, and you can do the same with width as well. So imagine the kind of systems and organizations and uniformity you can have across your UI, because this was unheard of. Componentizing these values, this was not possible ever. So just to quickly summarize, you can have as many numbers as you want. And of course, when we do advanced level videos, these are just basic videos because I just want to show you how do you create these in Figma. We're not discussing how do you use this in your design systems, because obviously this entire video is going to be for more than an hour. I will need to spend another hour just explaining you how do you use these in your day-to-day projects, right? So for now, let's take things slowly. Let's understand how do you even declare these variables in the first place. The next variable that we discussed was a string variable where you can declare content. And the fun part now is that you can also have modes. Now, I will not do a lot of discussion on modes right now, simply because it is a whole new topic altogether as to how do you use modes. But the interesting part here is that let's say you have an app which is in both light theme and dark theme. Okay. And let's just say I take this cover right here and let's just have this frame as my light theme and then this frame as my dark theme. Now, if this component is the same, all I need to do is switch the colors. Okay. Let's just say I take this thing right here, I will detach and I will add a color which is gray 2. Okay. I will take all of these, detach all of them and maybe make these as gray 3. Okay. Let's delete this one. Now this works well on a dark theme, but this would obviously not be legible on a light theme. Now my first solution would be that, hey, why don't I just go here and instead of gray 2 make this gray 5, right? That would be the easiest way to fix things. But then that is making no sense at all because you have all of these primitives getting jumbled up, like there's no logic behind it. The right way would be, I will go to my UI palette and I have text primary. Let's say I create a new variable and this time I will select color and I will make this as text secondary. Okay, text dash secondary. I will click here, create an alias, and I will select gray 3. Okay, if not gray 3, maybe, probably, I don't know. Yeah, actually, let's just keep gray 3. Okay, you can see that the text primary is a black color and text secondary is a gray color, which basically means that I can only use this for a light theme. So if I go here and make this text primary and go here and make this as text secondary, this looks well. Okay, so right now my palette was created for a light theme. But if I take this on a dark surface, not legible. What I can do is I can click on this plus icon right here. And as soon as I do that, I have 2 modes of the same variable. Now this is a game changer. You will absolutely love this. I can call mode 1 as light and mode 2 as dark. And here in my text primary, instead of linking it to gray 5, I can link this to gray 1. And here in my text secondary, instead of making this gray 3, I can make this gray 2. Now the fun part is that if I go back here, you will realize that Ansh, you have already selected text primary, then why is it not showing the white color? Like it should show like light or dark, right? So how do you switch in between this? To switch from one mode to another, you have to select your entire component or instance, and right next to layer you will find this icon right here where you have overlapping hexagons. If you click on the overlapping hexagons, you will find UI palette, and inside UI palette you can switch between light and dark. So if I go to dark, you now have one single component that has the same variables, by the way. It has text secondary, text primary, but now they are getting linked to different primitives. So I have the same color of grays which are being referenced in different ways across light and dark theme. Now another crazy feature right here is that let's just say I have 2 apps. Okay, this app UI is for the light theme and then this app is again for a dark theme. You remember what I had to do? I had to take this thing right here, again switch this thing, then go here, switch from light to dark. The fun part is that you can take a frame and allocate a theme, and I will use the word mode because mode is the right word for it, but we are using it for themes. I can select a specific frame and then allocate a mode to this frame, which basically means that if I select this thing right here and put something in this frame right here, select this frame, go to my layer and then choose dark, it would automatically switch. So I can take another copy and it would automatically switch from light theme to dark theme. And this would work for any other component. So let's just say that I have a button. Okay, I will create a button and this button can have a 6 pixel radii. And here it will have the word click me. Okay, I will take these two, put these together, make this into a component. And for my light theme, let's just call this as, say, I'll create a new color. I'll call this as button primary BG. Okay, let me make this as BG. And in my light theme, obviously I'll go here and I can select gray 5 because that is the color that I want. And in my dark theme, I want to make it pitch white. Okay, I will go here, select this and type button primary BG. In my text, I want to keep this as text primary. Okay. Now, if I take this thing right here and go to my UI palette and select my light theme, you'd realize that nothing has happened. Why it hasn't happened? Because my text primary is actually black. So then I will have to create a new color token. And when I say the word color token, it's actually a color variable. I will make this button primary text. Because this is still black, but I don't want it to be black, right? So I can create an alias and this time I can make this as gray 1. Okay. Here I will create an alias and make this the color black. Now here I can actually go and say that I only want this to be used for text. Okay. Here I will go and choose button primary text. Now folks, if I have a button right here that has a button primary BG, that has gray 5 black color in light and white color in dark, and the text is also inverted. What I need to do is take this out, and on the very right side, you have this button right here that has overlapping hexagons. If I choose auto, instead of specifically saying light and dark, if I choose auto, and if I drag it into this frame, it would actually change themes automatically. Now, in a lot of cases, what happens is that people would duplicate it, and then once they go here, instead of auto, they might have selected light or dark or whatever it is. When that happens, this feature would not work. So if you want this to work properly, make sure that you have it selected at dark. This frame also needs to have that specific value. So it has to be either light or dark. So, you have to make sure if you switch this to light, then everything gets messed up. So this has to be dark, this has to be an auto, this has to be an auto. And that is why, it's working pretty well. But this is very, very useful when you're sort of designing apps that are across, different themes. Now we come to Boolean variable. Now, of course, the entire concept of Boolean is that it can either have a value of off or on. Now, if you go to create variable and select a Boolean, let's just say I have the word, say, switch. Okay. And let's just say that we have some feature right here where I know that this sounds like a very weird feature, but in my light theme, we keep an I, but in my dark theme, we probably have, this as off. Okay. And I just don't want it to be in my light theme. Now, if I want to toggle this visibility, I can actually have the word switch. And when I use the word switch, I'm basically saying the word token. In light theme, this can be on. In dark theme, it can be off. Now, if I want to apply a variable, specifically the Boolean variable, onto the visibility, there is no hexagon icon readily available. So I'll have to right click and then select my switch option. Now, the interesting part here is that I can of course go here also, take this entire thing and right click and make it switch. So of course it would go away, but you can also sort of make this automatic. So if I were to take this thing right here, the visibility would go on and off. So Boolean right now is only useful for either visibility or for, triggering certain actions in the prototyping mode. Okay, there's no other practical use. Like, it is mostly heavily used in prototyping. Otherwise, if you're talking about UI design, it is mostly to toggle things on and off. There's not much benefit to it, right? Now, we also spoke about collection. Within a collection, if you use the slash convention, you can also have these organized in a group, right? So you have these collections, and then within collection, you can have color. Within color, you can have gray colors and the brand colors, very, very similar to how we used to, declare our styles. And just wanted to put these names out there because in the upcoming videos, I will be using the word colors and groups, right? So within collections, you have groups. Within groups, you have variables. Variables are actually names for a specific hex codes, right? And then what you can do is you can have different groups for your spacing and radius. So you have one primitives, and then within primitives, you can save your colors in this group, then just your spacings and just your radii. Because as I said, you can use as an auto layout as well, right? The concept of alias I've already covered, that you can right click and choose those colors. So I think that would be sorted. And of course, this is how people put it. So if you have a group called spacing, within spacing, you have XS, you have SM. So, there are multiple namings for this, right? So X is extra small, SM can be just small, MD can be medium. And then, this thing right here, these can be some numbers that they have probably declared in their primitives. So they are in their tokens collection, but maybe their radii, their border radii, their spacing, all of them are sort of, taking numbers from a specific library. There's a proper logic behind it. This comes under the subject of design systems and UX design, which you don't want to cover right now. Otherwise the video will not even end. Now, a very, very important doubt that a lot of students have is that, Ansh, what exactly is the difference between styles and variables, right? In styles, we were just restricted to typefaces, shadows, and colors. And when you declare a style, I can actually take this thing right here, go to the icon, click on plus. In my style, I can actually add multiple layers on top of this. So you can actually have layering inside styles, right? This is not possible in a variable. You cannot have multi-values, overlapping properties in a variable. Styles can have that. So style can have an image also. It can have a color on top of the image also. But when we talk about a variables, it's a concrete value. It's a proper individual value. And of course, inside variables, you can store integers as well. There was no aliasing in styles. You cannot have multi-level referencing in styles, but you can do that in variables. And the most crazy cool feature is that there's no scoping inside styles, right? But as I showed you, you can have proper scoping inside variables. Like you can literally tell Figma that these properties are only going to be used for either text or stroke. Now folks, to do this thing practically, there's a Figma file which has been uploaded by Figma on their community. It says get started with variables. I don't want to cover this in this video because we're already, exceeding time. So I just want to cover one single example, but I'm just letting you know that this file is very, very important. Now I will give you a glimpse of prototyping with variables. Okay, so I have a component right here. I have created one button that says add views. I have another button that says delete views. I'll tell you what I need to achieve. If I click on add views, the number should increase. If I click on delete views, the number should decrease. Okay. So most importantly, I have my number right here. So this would be called as views and this would be called as term views. And let's just make this as view count. Okay. This add views should trigger an increment in this number right here. So my step number 1 would be to go to my local variables and let's create a new collection. I will call this as prototype. Okay. I will create a new variable and in my number, I will call this as view count. Okay. Let me just fix the spelling. And here I will make this as 999. Okay. Now I will go to my view layer right here. And instead of having a normal number, I will call this as view count. Okay. This thing remains the same. Now this is where things become super cool. You will not believe how crazy this is. I will switch to my prototyping mode. Okay. And let me just delete if there's any behavior whatsoever because I was trying this out. So if I enter my prototyping mode, I have to click on my interactions. Okay. Here on click, I have a couple of options. Okay. Now, if I were making a normal prototype, I would choose any of these options. And by the way, folks, don't worry. We will have a dedicated video for prototyping as well. For now, just watch. This you don't have to implement, just watch. Okay. I need to tell Figma that if I click on this button, you need to make some changes to a variable. Now, Figma uses the word set variable. It is essentially changing the variable value, but in Figma's world, it is called as set variable. So I will select set variable. Now it is asking me that Ansh, which variable do you want to change? I want to change the view count variable. So I will search for that and I will make this thing right here. Now it is asking me that Ansh, I understand that you want to make some changes to the view count. Now tell me what is that change? So in Figma's world, this is how they talk. They say that this is my view count, take this view count and change it into view count plus 1. If I need to increase the view by 1, this is what I'm trying to do, right? So I can't really talk in a normal language to Figma. I can say that, okay, add 1 to the view count. No. In Figma's mind, this is how we communicate. Make view count equal to view count plus 1. And this is very similar to how we used to code in C++. So once I selected my view count, now it is saying 2. Again, I will search the word view count and then make this plus 1. Now what exactly is happening right here? I am telling Figma that Figma, if I click on add views button, on click, you need to change a variable, but Figma calls it as set variable. So Figma, on click, you need to set a variable. Which is that variable? The view count variable. But what do I need to do to this view count? Nothing much. You need to convert it into view count plus 1. Now I will press enter. Now the interesting part is that if I were to take this slide 5, create a flow starting point, I will see a small play button right here. I will click on that and I will have the inline prototyping preview. Now, if I were to scale this and press on add views, you can see that the view count is improving and changing. Crazy, no? Like this is super cool. Now, what if I want to delete views? I'm clicking, nothing is happening. So I will close this. I will go to my delete views, select my auto layout, click on plus, on click, this time again, I will write set variable. Okay. And now I will choose view count, and then again view count to view count -1. I'm not writing 999 plus 1. I'm not writing 999 minus 1. I'm saying whatever the variable it may be, you take that and you subtract 1. Now when I open this prototype, see what happens. Deleting views will reduce my views. Adding views will do it this way. Now I can also close this, and let's just say I decide I make this as add 100 views. Okay. And delete 100 views. Let's space these out. And by the way, I'm switching in between design and prototyping mode by using Shift E. I mean, you already can see all of the keys I press, but yeah, just in case. I can again go to my interactions and this time make it plus 100. I can go to delete views and select my button, go to my set variable and make this as minus 100. Now when I open my prototype, I can add 100 views. And let's see what happens when I go to 0. It goes to -1. Right? Now, how do I stop here? That is the entire concept of conditions, because if I were to show you this menu again, here you have set variable and you also have conditional, where you have if else loops. And this is something that we will cover in our prototyping. I don't want to like confuse you right now, because this is more than enough. And folks, if you're here for the first time, if you haven't really, covered our syllabus properly, this course will not help you. See, I work so hard to make sure that there's a proper step-by-step guide for it. But if you're here for the first time, I would first recommend you to watch this video, which is a step-by-step roadmap on how to become a UX designer, where I tell you the degree, the age, the laptop you need, average salaries, how to get internships, the entire roadmap is right here. Then if you have already started learning UX and you're not able to get a good high paying job, or if you're not able to get a good internship, then we have created a video that is called Insider Tips for Getting a UX Design Job. Very, very important video if you're not able to make money. I regularly recommend people to document their learnings. If you are not in the habit of documentation, I'm telling you, you will lose out. I document all of my learnings on a tool called Notion. I have created a video on my YouTube channel where I teach how do I use Notion. So that video is right here. If you really want to write a proper case study, if you've already done a lot and you're applying for jobs, you will need at least 3 good case studies. We have created a playlist, which is the ultimate 2023 UX case study guide. I'm 100% confident that this would be very, very relevant in the year 2024 as well, where I take every single concept inside a case study and sort of give you a proper prescription. If you're here for the first time, we have created detailed courses, proper playlists on UX design, ChatGPT, Midjourney, everything is easily accessible. We have launched a website called learnuiux.in. I've already mentioned it before, that has a 9-week syllabus to become a UX designer. If you're interested in learning about AI tools, we've launched howtoprompt.in that has all my top AI tutorials and courses on ChatGPT and Midjourney. It has official documentation links. It has my favorite AI tools. It also has an ebook completely free where I've given a list of prompts that you can use to save time and be more productive. As I always recommend, you really have to finish at least the 15 episode course that we've created on UX design. And if you're interested in AR and VR, we have actually created a course which is on spatial design. And trust me when I say this, if you understand spatial design, you're going to be in so much value in the next 5 to 6 months. You will come back to me and thank me that, Ansh, thank God you recommended us to learn this subject. And folks, while you're on this journey, I know that a lot of you aspire to become a great UX designer, but a lot of you run out of patience. It takes at least 6 to 8 months just to learn the tool, another 6 to 8 months just to learn the subject. I will not give you false hopes because I've been through the journey. So I wish I had a senior who would tell me the reality. That's why I want to tell you the reality upfront. Now, if you want to get maximum value out of this episode, you need to do your homework. I would recommend you to go to help.figma.com and actually read the documentation they've written for variables, because it will take some time to understand how this works. Recreate any component that you'd like. using all the 4 variables that I've taught you. Document your learnings on LinkedIn and tag me. I always love every time you folks tag me in your notes. It's really nice. If there's any video that you haven't covered in the previous lectures, please finish that and make detailed notes on Notion. Our next lecture is going to be on design systems, but I will not release this video until unless I get 1000 likes within 5 days of upload and 500 comments within 5 days of upload. Yes, if you want me to work so hard, I want you to do an effort as well. This is a two-way street. Otherwise, YouTube will not even know that this content exists on the internet. So I need you to engage with this content so that YouTube gets to know that this has to be spread across to more students. With that being said, I'm so happy that you've made this far. I know this video was supremely long, but to be honest, I need to make sure that I cover every single detail in a way that anybody could easily understand. Let me know in the comment section if there's any specific topic that was complicated or too confusing in the variables video. I will try to make sure that I can clear those doubts in the upcoming videos. With that being said, I hope that you're taking care of your mind and body. This is your dost Ansh Mehra signing out. If you like this video, make sure you click on like and hit the subscribe button. I regularly upload videos on UX design, marketing and storytelling.